So I just want, the big picture here is that just like Frank and Barry Gillis argued that after Eurasia was a single system, North America was a single system.
Yeah, exactly.
But then the case that he's actually talking about is not North America, it's the southwest of California. But if you take the high bar definition of interdependence that you mentioned, it's hard to imagine that that makes sense out of North America being a single system. Because what that would require is something happens on the Channel Islands and it affects Maine.
Well, actually, you know, just at Spiral Mountains, which is in Oklahoma, there's 12,000, almost 11,800 some olivella shells actually, which came from California. So that's an extreme amount of trade. 12,000, you know, traveling basically the entire distance across North America. Again, I think you'd have to sort of look at what those shells are doing at Spiral Mountains and how important those were to that economy to make an argument for connectedness. But clearly, people are traveling, you know, at great distances. And again, those stories that I was mentioning that the Spanish were recording talked about actual people traveling across, you know, the North American continent. So this isn't just down the line trade. We have people from, you know, Los Angeles going all the way into New Mexico. We have people from Wisconsin traveling to Louisiana. This isn't just down the line. This is actual connections between places.
Anybody else want to jump in here?
Yeah. Okay, I'll bite. What's the difference between taxes and tribute?
Depends who you ask.
Gene, I don't know if you really want to go there. we were in Arizona at the Ameren Foundation seminar, and we spent days dealing
Taxes
with
have a regular schedule. Okay, Codex Mendoza provides regular schedules. Taxes are written down. Codex Mendoza. Taxes have professional tax collectors, which we have. Tribute is a sort of lump sum figure. You knock them on the head and you demand the tribute. Or it could be ongoing, but it's just taxes are much more routinized. It's institutionalized. So, Franny?
So Mike wants to standardize this so it becomes a more comparative thing. I understand that. But what happens in the meantime is that you lose the cultural context. And in these cases, tribute wasn't just a payment. It wasn't just a fiscal amount of money or stuff that you're paying. It was tribute. It was a symbol of homage. There were huge processions that came into Tenochtitlan, and they made a huge deal of these things when they gave their tribute, and they bowed down and gave it. So it was tribute. It had a cultural and political attribute to it.
And what's interesting is what gets called tribute is always true. Victoria and Hong Kong will know that tribute in late imperial China was a euphemism for us getting ripped off blind by those guys. Whenever the Southeast Asians brought in tribute, the court would have to give them 10 times as much stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it did involve goods. I mean, it's a funny area. So Mike mentioned in this book that we've just written together, we've had to put tribute/tax or tax/tribute. Which one of us is writing at the moment? Because we're still friends, but I really solved this little issue.
But I'm still right.
No, I
have a question actually for any Mesoamericanist. What was the motive for the Spaniards draining Lake Tenochtitlan, or what would be the advantage for them? Was it just to break the Aztecs, or was there an actual ecological advantage?
No, it came later. It came later afterward. They considered it an impediment to expansion of the city of Mexico City.
Okay.
Basically, the geography of the area, it's a basin. It's a collected water basin, so it's surrounded by mountains. It had flooding problems all through its history, its prehistory. The Spaniards wanted to get rid of those flooding problems and expand their own city. So what they did is they drained it. There was one channel they could use out toward the north, and it took a long time. And it's not fully drained now. I mean, there's still pockets of water here. But it was, by then the back of the Aztecs had been broken.
Okay, so we're looking at the 1600s by then?
Yeah, into the 1600s, yeah.
Okay, let's go in order down here. Hong Kong, you can start.
Yeah, quick question, since this was brought up about is what is indication of being in the same system that Andrew Gunnar Frank said that the simultaneity is never coincidental. I'm intrigued by it, is have some truism, but you cannot establish that it is in the same system because of simultaneity until you exclude the other external factor like climate. That the whole literature of 17th century crisis that Andrew Gunnar Frank also used about is that this all simultaneous crisis in 1630s, 1640s, and he argued that it is because it's a world system. But later people find that it is a little ice age and global cooling down, and some say that it is solar activity, some say that it is a big volcano eruption in 1610s in Java that actually stood up the dust and then cooled down the earth for. So it is, they can be totally not in the same system, but still have the same downturn and thing. That's just kind of a remark that...
When the simultaneity is in inverse cycles, the connection is more direct, though, because it's easier to essentially disregard external elements such as climatic change. But your point is essentially well taken, of course. You need to discard the null hypothesis.
I want to continue on that just a little bit, but first I would say that tax and tribute, where I live in Sweden, there are people, especially ministers, who say, and I'm not saying ministers of the church, I'm saying ministers of the government, who say, there's nothing more that I like than paying my taxes. And it's also the fact that, so there's a lot of culture in all of this, including taxes. In Sweden, also taxes are basically a bookkeeping operation. You never see the money. It's taken off before you even see it. You can find it if you go to an accountant, he looks it up in the state register and all the rest of it, but otherwise you don't see it. So it is true though, it's much more institutionalized. So that's an interesting kind of aspect of it. Yeah, but I think that the idea of the exchange is really important, that you're giving it because of something like, it's almost like a sacrifice, or it's more of a ritualized relationship.
Yeah, and it's a symbol of subservience.
Right, but even there, I would say you're probably having a continuum. So it's not clear at all. So it's not, I don't think it's such a big problem. I have one thing, has to do, I remember this, and Barry would know about it. I recall the whole issue of simultaneity in cycles. As Gills and Frank discussed it, it was very much about parallel cycles, that places were going up and down at the same time.
Yeah, synchronous.
Right, but Guillermo's example, and I think some really powerful examples in systemic terms, are of inverse cycles. This is what should be happening.
Which is the development of the development. It's an inverse cycle.
Right. So I'm wondering, like, how, what do you all think about this? I'm not sure. This is like, so that's a kind of a general question.
Okay. Guillermo, did you?
I had an observation about taxes and tribute in the Assyrian case, but perhaps we finish this first.
You want to do this? Okay, so the seesawing synchrony thing is a very important thing, and either seesawing or synchrony could indicate connections, but there are other possibilities, right? And this is not just an issue in California-Southwest relations, or it's an issue in East-West relations, in the West and China, okay? And in Southeast Asia, there are synchronous cycles. Obviously, climate change can have something to do with it, but it can be because of connections or because of interdependence, but it could also be because two things just happen to start at the same time. It could be just completely accidental. So you need to say what you are doing in terms of causality, and go try to find evidence of how it's actually working. You can't just jump from the fact of synchrony to the idea that there's connectedness or systemness. You have to say what the connection is, and then go see if there's any evidence one way or the other. Peter.
I'd like to just ask Franny a question about whatever we want to call it. Did the Aztecs go to some of these provinces and say, kind of jokingly to each other, nudging each other in the ribs, let's ask these guys for greenstone because we know they're not got any greenstone here? Or did they think, did they know where this stuff really came from, and was there some sort of overarching plan to force these people out to sort of widen the networks?
Yeah.
Indirectly?
They didn't do it just to be, extra mean, they get harder for them. Basically, the word is, through the documents, is that they got tribute from people they conquered in things that were available in the province. Now, available has a lot of meanings. So they would go to Tochpan, for example, in the northern Gulf Coast, and they say, okay, in this province we see greenstone, and we see turquoise, and we see cacao, and we see feather and whatnot. And it doesn't mean necessarily that they were natively available there, they were natively produced, but at that time they were already working their way into that area through the markets and through trade. So my sense of it is they've already got traders that have been trading this stuff in over long periods of time, and when the Aztecs come in there, yeah, the turquoise is there and the greenstone is there, it's just that it's not produced available to this locally. So what happens is then, if the guys are going to pay tribute in those things, they have to maintain those relationships simply because the tribute is demanded of that. In addition to whatever they want locally, but they can't just stop having the turquoise trade after tribute. I mean, you mentioned flag precedes trade. In this case, yeah, that's true, but it didn't stop trade. In fact, it stimulated trade.
Can you to follow up on this question? What was that IRS form you showed us? Does it precede Spanish conquest?
Yeah. Well,
what was it on? What was it on? What was the medium?
Okay, there are actually two versions of that. The one version I prefer is, I believe, everybody has their opinion on this, but I'm right.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
No, you won't disagree. No, you agree with me. It's pre-conquest. It's called the Matriquita de Tributos. It's in Mexico City. It's a document that shows page by page the various towns that had to pay various tributes, such as warrior costumes, maize, cotton, cacao, feathers, whatever. Page by page, it goes through the empire, basically.
What is it actually painted on?
It's on amat. It's on amate paper, fig bark paper. It's native paper.
Bark paper.
It's on bark paper.
I see.
Yeah, from the fig tree.
And so these are pictograms, and the number of pictograms actually indicates how many items.
Oh yeah, there's numerical glyphs.
I think Mike is correct. I'm sorry. It was an annual thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, different time periods. There were different time periods. In a very sort of functional sense, it follows that. But as far as a cultural sense, it follows the way I look at it. So it depends on how you look. Do you look at humans, or do you look at just economics?
You almost got
I mean,
something on
it's
this.
both. It's both.
This whole debate of tribute versus taxes is one that is very common as well in the case of the Assyrian Empire. And there, the general consensus is that, in a sense, everything brought in from vassal states that have not been incorporated into Assyria is in the form of tribute. Tribute is always in the form of wealth, finance, preciosities, whereas taxes generally, and there's an issue of who benefits. Tribute goes directly to the king and can be used by the king for patronage. Whereas taxes, mostly, but not always, is in the form of staple finance, stays in the province in which it is produced, goes to maintain Assyrian army and administrative operations on that province, and it cannot be disposed of by the king as he pleases. So it's a matter of who benefits.
Yeah, that's another different way of looking at it.
All right, hey, it's 4:10. We need to have a little break here, 15-minute break, and then come back and have 2 more sessions.